Well, hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Algebra 2. Today we're learning about the quadratic formula, and this is going to be your favorite thing in the whole world. So we spent tons of time on how to factor. It seems like years we've spent on how to factor. Today we're going to learn a different way to get the exact same answers. Now this one might be a little more drawn out, or it might be easier for you depending on how good you were at factoring. For many people, this is even easier than factoring was, and best of all, it always works. So remember, before there were times when we could not factor and find the answer because we had a square root for an answer. This one will even give you square root answers. So this is they're coming out with a new trailer. I've gotten to see a little sneak preview of it, of Chewbacca's younger sister is actually in the next one. Her name is Babaka. B-B-A-C-A is how it's spelled. Babaka. And Babaka is going to be your best friend for this because quadratic formula is spelled B-B-A-C-A. Babaka. So just remember Chewbacca's younger sister. B-B-A-C-A. Alright, this will make sense to you a little bit later on. But let's look right here. You notice that I have something called the discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. That's right up there above my straw. B squared minus 4ac. It's here inside the square root. Remember, what's inside the square root has to be a positive number. So that's what this is just telling you. If it's positive, we're going to have two real solutions because there's a plus and a minus. So that's going to give us two answers. If this is 0, that means I'm taking the square root of 0. I'm adding and subtracting a 0. Well, if you add 0 or you subtract 0, you're still going to get the same answer. So there's only one real solution. Now, if this, the b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant, is negative, so I would be taking the square root of a negative number. So far, we don't know how to take the square root of a negative number. It creates something called an imaginary number. And again, you'll get to that when we go to second year algebra in a couple years. But just know for right now that that's going to give us two imaginary solutions. We're not going to do anything with that because again, we're going to do that in Algebra 3-4, second year algebra later on. So for right now, let's just worry about b squared minus 4ac, whether it's positive, 0, or negative. That will tell you how many answers there are. Alright, now let's actually work this out. Just like when we were doing factoring, we're going to label this A, B, and C. Of course, we're going to have this in standard form first, so the x squared is first, and then x to the first power, and then a number. Now, I'm going to draw out the same exact thing every single time I do one of these problems. So, I'm going to put negative blank plus or minus square root blank squared minus 4 blank blank all over 2 blank. Okay, so every single time we do a problem, we're going to have this exact same thing, and so much so that in fact I'm going to take it and copy it over and over again. So I'm going to kind of cheat here, hit the copy button, and every time we do another problem, I'm going to paste it in there so that I don't have to write it over and over again. If you can somehow find a way to do that on paper, feel free. Maybe get a rubber stamp or something, I don't know. But remember, Babaka, B-B-A-C-A. Once I've written this down, all I have to do is fill in the numbers. Now, some of you are not going to believe me. You're just going to kind of go in and fill it in as you're going. I'm telling you, that's a huge mistake. If you write out this little thing that I call like the skeleton, if you'll write out the skeleton part first, it will make your life easier. So here we go. B, ooh, there's a negative and a negative 4 touching, so I'll just make that a positive 4. B, A is 1, C is negative 5, and then A again is 1. B-B-A-C-A. Super easy. Now let's go ahead and work out just what's inside the square root. But before I do that, I'm just going to copy everything the way it is except leave the square root blank And then let's do the hard math of 2 times 1 on the bottom. Okay, not so bad. All right, so what I want you to do is grab that calculator and you're going to type everything that's under the square root, but don't type the square root on the calculator. So you're going to grab the calculator, use the parentheses. Oh, please use the parentheses. They're not just there for decoration. They're there for a real reason. So I've got -4 all squared with parentheses around it, -4 times 1 times -5. Don't do any shortcuts here. Just type all of that into the calculator, again with no square root. All right, once you do that, you should get the answer 36. Any questions on that? No? Fantastic. Next, all I'm going to do, the only thing I'm going to do in this step is now I'm going to go ahead and find the square root of that answer. Now, why didn't I have you do that before on the calculator? Well, one reason is because there's a lot of parentheses here, and if you don't have the parentheses correct with the square root, it's kind of easy to screw it up. So I'm saving you from a giant headache and a lot of mistakes. Also, sometimes this will be a perfect square root, and sometimes it won't be. So for right now, I'm just having you do that on a separate step. Trust me, it's going to seem like it's extra work, an extra step. It's not. You really need this. All right, so I again am going to copy my 4 and my 2. Don't forget the plus or minus sign. Then on my calculator or in my brain, I'm going to take the square root of 36. Well, the square root of 36, as we learned from before, is just 6. And that's all for that part. Okay. Now, since it was only 6, I can go ahead and combine 4 and 6, right? 4 plus 6, 4 minus 6. I know how to do that. Just like usual, this is going to have 2 answers. I'm going to have one with a plus and one with a minus. So let's do one with a plus 6 here. And let's write it out with the minus 6 here. So the plus or minus means I'm going to have 2 answers, one with a plus, one with a minus. Work them both out. So this on top gives me 10 over 2, which is 5. This one gives me -2 over 2, which is -1. So my 2 answers would be 5 and -1. Now, you're not going to believe this, but if I had chosen to do this solving by factoring, I would have gotten the exact same answers, 5 and -1. Some of you loved factoring, and so you could have factored and gotten the same answer quite easily. If you don't like factoring, that's okay. This is a new method for you, and you're going to love it. Now, if you're in love with factoring and you don't want to learn this, bad news. You have to know this in order to figure out ones that do not have perfect square roots, like this one. So you might as well learn it. All right, off we go to another example. I'm going to go ahead and paste my beautiful formula right here. It's a little big, so let's shrink it down. All right, so there it is. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. If there's no number in front of a variable, I always put a 1, and I'm always going to label A, B, C, making sure it's in standard form first. All right, so B, do you think you can do this on your own? I bet you could. You could hit pause and do this on your own and then see if we match it up. All right, B is -3, so I'm going to put -3, just like that. I don't like 2 negatives touching each other, so I just cross out the other negative. B, A, C, A. So I write my 3, it's a +3, so I just put 3 plus or minus my square root, and 2 times 1 is 2. Now in my calculator, I'm going to put everything that's under that square root. So go ahead, let's type it. 3 all squared minus 4 times 1 times -18. That should have given you an answer of 81. Now that you have that 81, I'm going to copy everything over again except the square root of 81. So copy my 3 plus or minus and my 2. Now instead of the square root of 81, I type in the calculator, or in my brain, the square root of 81, which is 9. Now again, because this is a beautiful number with no square roots, I can just write it twice. Once here and once down there. I'm going to do 3 plus 9 divided by 2 and 3 minus 9 divided by 2. 3 plus 9 is 12 and divided by 2 is 2. Now one common mistake that I do see people making is they'll type this whole thing into the calculator. They'll do 3 plus 9 divided by 2 and then they get some weird answer like 7.5. So if you try doing this and you got 7.5 for the answer, here's why you got this wrong. The 3 plus 9, if you type it into the calculator, you have to tell the calculator that that is the whole numerator. Otherwise, it's just doing 3 plus 9 over 2, which would be 3 plus 4.5, which is 7.5. That would be wrong. So you need to put parentheses around the whole top if you're going to do the whole thing in the calculator at once. Otherwise, just do it in your head. It's not that hard. 3 plus 9 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Same deal here. If you're doing it all in the calculator at once, go ahead, type it in with the parentheses on the top. This gives us negative 6 on top. Negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. So those are our two answers. Again, if I had factored this, it would have been 6 and negative 3, just like I have here. All right, let's move on to another one. This time is not going to be quite as easy. Again, I'm going to paste my beautiful what I call the skeleton. I have my A, B, and C. Again, if it's not in standard form, so if you don't have x squared, x number equals 0, then put it in standard form. You may have junk over here on the right side. You'll need to move that to the left. Make them all combined like terms and do all that stuff. Make it all in standard form. All right, now we're ready to go. B, this time is positive 5, so I just plop a 5 there. B, A, C, and A. Next, I'm going to copy that negative 5, my plus or minus, and on the bottom, 2 times 3 is 6. Over here, I put my square root. Now I need to bust out the calculator, and I'm going to type all of this into the calculator. Remember, we're typing it with no square root. So that's going to be 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 10. Remember to put those parentheses there. They're not just there for decoration. They're there to help you. And my calculator gave me 145. You okay with that? Hopefully, yes. Okay, now 145. Does that have a perfect root? No, as I promised, it is not. So 145 would go here. Remember when we were simplifying square roots in the previous section? Well, now it's going to come in really handy again. So I divide by 144, 121, 100, 81. None of those work. Now, I'll tell you a secret. When you have a really big number like this, this might be kind of helpful. So if this number is not on your chart, my secret trick is I can divide that number by 2 and eliminate a bunch of answers and make your job a little bit easier. So if I took this number and divided by 2, that would be 72.5. So I know that none of these will work because they're bigger than 72.5. So really, I could start right here. Now, if that was confusing to you, that's okay. Forget I even said it. Just start by dividing by 144 and work your way down. If you remember to divide by 2, 2's the smallest integer that'll go into it. Sorry, smallest whole number, I should say, that will go into it. So I know that I could start by dividing by 2 and then work my way down from there. So I tried dividing by 2. That gave me 72.5. So let's do 145 divided by 64. That does not work. How about 145 divided by 49? That also does not work. 145 divided by 36. 140. My calculator is going insane. 145 divided by 36. I think it's a user error. That doesn't work either. How about 25? That doesn't work. 145 divided by 16. That doesn't work. Holy cow. 145 divided by 9. No. 145 divided by 4. Oh no. None of them work. So since none of these numbers work, that tells me it's already reduced. Another way I could know it's reduced entirely is if I wanted to, I could do a factor tree with 145. What number can easily go into 145? 5 can. So I divide 145 divided by 5, I get 29. Both of those are prime numbers, and it's not a pair. So since there's no pairs, I know that there's no square root that I can reduce it down to. So that's it. That is my final answer. Let's do another one. Again, I'm going to paste my beautiful skeleton here and label it A, B, C. I'm willing to bet that you can do most of this on your own. Go ahead and set it up and see what number you get in the square root, and then hit play again. All right, here's B, B, A, C, and A. So working this out, I've got my -4 plus or minus square root of I don't know what yet, and 2 times 2 on the bottom is 4. So in my calculator, I have 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 1, which gives me, you should have, 24. Okay, any questions up to there? Hopefully not. Now I've got to take this square root of 24. Is it a perfect square? No, it's not. So I'm going to start over here. 24 is right there. I'm going to try dividing by 16. That doesn't work. 9, no. 4, yes. I can divide it by 4. So let's go back to using that same method that I did in the previous lesson. 24, I can reduce that. I can split them up. 24 is 4 times 6. So the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 6, we don't know what it is. It's just the square root of 6, so I copy it down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute, instead of that square root of 24 in my next step, I'm going to put 2 square root of 6. So I'm going to copy everything that I had, the -4, the plus or minus, the 4 on the bottom. But here, instead of the square root of 24, I'm going to write 2 square root of 6. 2 square root 6. Okay, now, can I add 4 and 2 square roots of 6? No, because that has a root and that does not. I cannot simplify those two. However, from time to time, you will notice that they may have something in common. Or you may be like the heart method and want to divide like this. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do it. For those of you who like the heart, we can do it this way. I'll do -4 divided by 4. That gives me -1. Copy your plus or minus. 2 over 4 gives me a half. 2/4 is a half. And then the square root of 6, it's just a square root. It goes all by itself. There's no other root here, so I'm just going to copy. So you could write the answer like that. That's one possible way to do it. Another way, so I'm going to put a big or here. You could do it this way. This is fantastic. Or another way, let's write down what I had before. Another way is to look at the numbers outside the square root and see if you can divide them all by the GCF. Well, 4 and 2 and 4, what can I divide into all those? I can divide them all by 2. So let's do -4 divided by 2. 2 divided by 2. Copy the square root. And then 4 divided by 2. So you could have this answer as well. This answer is fantastic, and this answer is fantastic. Whichever method you like is fine. However, on, I don't know, exams and things like that, just make sure that you're okay with seeing it in either form. I would tell you more often than not, you will see it in this form on the bottom. But it's possible to see it like that as well on multiple choice tests. So be careful, make sure that you know how to do both. Notice if I did the heart method right now, I would still end up with the same answer that's in the pink. Alright, let's do more. Again, write out your little skeleton. I'm hoping that now you should be able to do this one on your own. Go ahead and fill in A, B, and C and join us in a second. Alright, so there's -2. -2, A, C, and A. So on the top I have 2 plus or minus square root of blank all over 6. Inside the square root is what I'm doing next, so I'm typing all of this into the calculator. That's going to be -2. Remember to use the parentheses. Oh, please use parentheses. Minus 4 times 3 times -4, all in the parentheses again. And my calculator gave me 52. So this number in here should be 52. Off to the side here, I'm going to simplify the square root of 52. 52 goes there. There's no number 52. So again, I can kind of cheat and use that little half method. Half of 52 is 26, so I could skip these two if I really wanted to. If you don't understand that, that's okay. We can divide by 49. That won't work. 36 won't work. 25 doesn't work. How about 52 divided by 16? Nope. 52 divided by 9? Nope. 52 divided by 4? Yes, indeed. 4 works. So that would give me 4 times 13. What is the square root of 4? It's 2. So I have 2 square root of 13. So right here, this cool little pink section is going to be substituted in this. This is going to be 2 square root of 13 this time. So here we go. We've got 2 plus or minus. Leave that blank. 6 right here. I'm going to copy this pink here where that pink used to be. So instead of the square root of 52, I will put 2 square root of 13. 2 square root 13. Okay. Now, depending on what you like to do, you can do the heart method. Boom, boom. If you did the heart method, 2 over 6 gives me 1 over 3. 2 over 6 gives me 1 over 3 again. And you copy the square root of 13. You could do it that way. Or, some people prefer the other way, where you look at the 2, and the 6. What can I divide them all by? Hopefully you said 2. So, 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. Copy the root. You'll never divide by that root. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. Notice again, this is the same as that. You could do this pink or this teal. Either one, you get the exact same answer. Those are both the same thing. Let's do one more. And by 1, I might mean like 10, but that's okay. So there's my ABC. Again, by now, hopefully you can do this on your own, so you should be doing this, hitting the pause button, doing this, and then coming back to us. So there's B, A, C, A. Notice that A is negative this time, no big deal. I am even shakier than usual today. I've had a little caffeine today. Sorry about that. All right, so in my calculator, I'm typing all that junk that's here in the yellow, or sorry, pink. I don't know my colors very well. Again, we're typing with the parentheses. Don't forget the negative signs as well. So I got 24 inside the root. I feel like I've done 24 before. Ooh, I have. Look, there's the square root of 24 right there. So we found that that answer already was 2 square root of 6. So I'm going to kind of cheat off myself. I know that the square root of 24 is the same thing as 2 square root of 6. So since I know that, in this pink, I'm going to substitute that pink when I rewrite it. So I have -4 plus or minus blank over -4. In this blank, I'm going to put 2 square root 6. Just like that. Okay, now you have 2 options. You could do the heart. Drawing the heart, I have -4 divided by -4 is 1. 2 divided by -4 is -1/2. Now, does the negative matter? No, because we put a plus or minus sign there already. It would change both those signs, which would be negative or positive. It doesn't matter. So the 2/4 is just 2/4, which is 1/2. and you copy the square root of 6. So that's one possible answer. Another possible answer that you could write it this way instead: 4, 2, and 4. You can divide all those by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. And that's it. Either of these could be correct. Now, I don't want to terribly confuse you, but you could also change all of the signs for this whole equation. So you could also expect to see, maybe on a multiple choice exam, something like this, where I divided all of them by a -1. These two would be the same. I divided this by -1, this by -1, and that by -1. Again, the plus or minus doesn't make any difference. It's already a plus or minus. You can't change it. All right, so any of these three answers would be perfectly fine. How many of these are left? Oh, good, it's the last one. I was just reading your mind. So there's A, there's B, and there's C. Now, something magical may happen with this one. Let's find out. There's B, B, A, C, and A. If you work this out on your own and pressed pause, I'm proud of you, good job. You should have had this, and then you typed all of this in, and you had -11 inside here. Okay. Next, I'm going to do the square root of -11 on my calculator, and my calculator just exploded. What in the world is going on? It says error really big. So what am I going to do with that? Well, remember way back long ago when we talked about the discriminant, if this number inside the square root is negative, I'm going to have two imaginary solutions. So how many real solutions do I have? None. There's no real solution. So my answer to this problem is actually just no real solution. Whenever you have a negative inside the square root, it is no real solution. Now I know I didn't do any where this number were 0, but if it were 0, I would just be having -3 plus or minus 0. I would add 0, I'd subtract 0, I'd get the same answer twice. No big whoop. Alright, well, sadly, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for paying attention and for listening and for doing these problems with the quadratic formula. There are fantastic videos on the line, by the way, on YouTube for songs that help you remember the quadratic formula, but I'm just going to continue to tell you Babaka. Just remember Babaka. Again, keep using that cool little formula that I gave you like this. Write this first, then go ahead and wait till my office hours, which are also listed there on my Canvas page, and visit me face to face. Or you can just start on that homework now if you know what you're doing, and I think you probably do. That homework is also on the Canvas page. And again, if you have any questions, please contact me. Don't just sit there at home staring at the wall. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Have a beautiful week.